Good afternoon from Lake Callide Retreat. This is where I've stayed for the last 4.5 days, doing a mixture of Barra fishing and yellowbelly fishing, both land-based and by kayak, and I've had a great time. It's kind of the afternoon now, the winds come up and the bites shut down, so I've kind of had a chance to regroup and relax. Take a look at this cabin that I've been staying in. You can see it's well set up with good living area, laundry, bathroom, kitchen, and you can probably see behind me the kayak that I hired. So I've been doing a bit of kayak fishing and a bit of land-based. So as we go into the cabin, you'll see those features I mentioned. I've got a big living area. There's gear everywhere because I came back from a fishing trip this morning. Nice little kitchen, good laundry area and bedroom. I'm going to explain why I chose Lake Callide in a moment, and then we'll run through some of the gear and strategies that I used. Okay guys, back in the cabin, enjoying a coffee, and I'll run you through why I chose Lake Callide opposed to the other impoundments in my area. So as you might know, I'm from Hervey Bay, and there are a variety of impoundments that are much closer to Hervey Bay. There's Lentils, there's Mondrian, even Awunga is closer. But the distance wasn't the only factor in selecting somewhere to fish. So it was about 4.25 hours drive to come out to Callide. So you might be thinking, why choose this impoundment over all those others? Well, it became like a process of elimination. With Lentils, the road's terrible, and they've had a lot of fish kills and floods. It's really not fishing very well, and there's nowhere to stay there. So that wasn't really an option. Mondrian, a lot of the good fishing is up the back end of Mondrian, so you do need a boat to fish it properly. And I also find that getting accommodation during the peak holiday season is a problem there. Awunga is about 3 hours, so it's an extra couple more hours from Mondi, and that was another contender. That was one that was kind of neck and neck with Callide in my decision making, but I eventually went with Callide because I heard that there was some good land-based fishing opportunities. The percentage in the dam was sitting on 17% opposed to 50% in Awunga, so I figured I'd come across a few more fish in the lower dam level. Getting accommodation was quite simple at Callide. I could get this cabin, and I could also rent that kayak you saw before. So that was kind of the sweetener. There are a couple of factors which swayed me towards Callide, and I ended up choosing to stay here for 4 nights. So this video will show some of the detail in the trips I did, a little bit of footage of some Barra fishing, and I'll run you through some of the strategies that worked for me while I stayed here. So I decided to come to Callide in the second week of January 2024. It was right on the new moon that I planned to come here. So the new moon was it day before yesterday? And I've stayed 2 nights either side of that day. It's been really interesting to see the fishing. Having never been here before, I kind of assumed that the fishing would peak on that new moon and then taper off either side of it, but it actually wasn't like that. It was red hot at the beginning, and then it plateaued and tapered off, and this morning's session wasn't very good, but all the other sessions were pretty productive. With this dam, all of the wind has been pushing towards the dam wall, and that was something which was a bit of an incentive to come here. People were saying all the fish are going to be stacked up near the dam, near the wall of the dam, and they are all going to be following that water to the end. And that was kind of confirmed on that first day when I went fishing. There was loads of bait action around the wall area. Pleasingly, it was very easy to access on foot, so I was able to do some land-based sessions. I did a bit of kayak fishing as well during the daytime, trying to target some yellow belly. I used some lighter gear and some spinner baits, but couldn't really get onto them despite fishing in some very promising looking locations. The Barra fishing is what's made this trip so fun. So the first fish that I got was about 1 meter long. It was actually exactly 1 meter, but when I put it on the brag mat and all of the rocks and slime, the rocks under the mat and the slime on top of the mat, it kept sliding back to 99. But I'm going to call it as 1 meter. It took a couple of hours to get that hook up. That was the first morning I was here. There was loads of bait, lots of bony brim, just big clouds of them in the water, and the long tom and the Barra were coming in and smashing the schools. So you would hear the boofs and the splashes, and cast your lure and hope that your lure would intercept with one of those predators. My lure was a mess after that. It got straightened out. Yeah, and I got some great photos of that fish, and even though it was around 1 meter long, it was very heavy. It was probably a 40-pounder, very hard to lift. So that was a great start to this trip. After that first fish, I went on an afternoon session in the kayak. Couldn't really get much. I tried a lot of trolling in the main basin, which is a popular technique the locals use, is to just go around that area where the fish hold deep, and there's like this pipe where all these bubbles come up through the surface, and people troll around that and along the weed edges. I tried doing that with some 10 plus divers, couldn't get anything. So the following morning I went out back early to do some casting, and it was one of those mornings where it was super calm, and it was like a mill pond, and you could see bait rippling, and it just looked like you were going to hook up. So I decided to put on a Cultiva Tango Dancer, which is ideally suited to that situation. So as most anglers know, it's very hard to get a hook up on a Tango Dancer, being a surface lure that moves erratically. And I was able to get a classic Barra strike on one of those, where it's gone the big oof and imploded on the lure, and that was a great fight. That fish was 93 centimeters, again a very thick set, heavily built fish, probably around 15 kilos, and that released well, which was good.
Holy shit.
So after that morning, things started to taper off a bit, and I was able to do a bit more kayaking, did a bit more scoping up the end of the dam, but it wasn't that productive fishing wise. So that's a quick rundown on some of the fishing action that I experienced over the last few days. Now I'll show you guys some of the gear that I used. So this is the first outfit that I've been using on my trip to Lake Callide. And as you can see, it's a Shimano Zodius 160 MH2. So it's medium heavy, 2-piece. It's the 6-foot version. This is a 2018 Zodius, so it's not made anymore. But I find this very light in the hand, very user-friendly, and it can cast these small soft plastics really well. This is rated 12 to 25 pounds, and it has that split butt, which is great for long distance casting. I've got this matched with Shimano Curado 150 HG digital cast control version, and that's very comfortable and light in the hand, especially when you're doing like 1,000 casts. This is really comfortable to use. So having that digital control is really important when you're out in that open country and doing so many casts. I find it just keeps the casting consistency up there. I've got this spooled with 30-pound Power Pro in the red color. This is really good to cast with too. Nice diameter, it ties really well with knots, and that's pretty much my frontline outfit that I've used this the most. My next outfit is a Shimano Calcutta Conquest 200 DC. So again, digital cast control. This is a beautiful outfit. It's a little bit heavier than the Curado, but it's very strongly made and can hold a bit more line. And in honesty, this is probably a little bit better suited to this style of fishing. I find this is really good for higher speed retrieves, like if you're using hard body lures or heavier lures. This works pretty well. I've got 30-pound J-braid, the X8 version on here, and it's the reel is matched to Team Daiwa Double Beef 662 HFB, which is 6 to 12 kilos. This is a little bit heavier than the Zodius to use, but it's still great, still doesn't cause much fatigue, and is very good for, like I say, those hard bodies and big surface lures. I find that it's ideal for that. It's actually got this old style V joint, which I found hasn't really impeded the action too much. And with this rod being 2-piece and the Zodius being 2-piece, I can fit them both in this Zodius bag, and I can put them in the car disassembled, and they don't get damaged. Other thing I like about this Team Daiwa rod is it's got this keeper. Can you see that there? And that means I can put the lure on the keeper. Okay, so it's on the keeper, and as you can see, my guides aren't getting damaged. So this is a really good outfit. I probably used the Zodius a little bit more this trip because it was a little bit more focused on soft plastics, but this certainly got a fair bit of use too. Other thing I should mention about the Zodius being so light, I could use this as a makeshift yellow belly rod by cutting off the Barra leader and tying on some 15-pound mono and a spinnerbait. So that's another reason I think this style of rod and reel, this low profile, is good to have. So on this rod, I've got 60-pound Sigua fluorocarbon. So I've got a rod length of that, and it's tied with a Bimini twist and Tony Jones leader knot. So a lot of people have got obsessed with tying all kinds of knots like FGs, particularly of late. People think that that's the only knot that exists, but this knot can hold up under major strength. this Tony Jones knot. I've used it offshore, I've used it in estuary fishing and loads of impoundment fishing, and I like how that leader tag sits parallel to the fluoro. It just goes through those little Zodius guides beautifully. So that's a quick summary of the gear I used, the rods and reels. I'll show you the Seaguar. So that's the leader that I use, 60-pound Seaguar. It's kind of a little bit on the light side for impoundment fishing, but it can still hold up to those meter fish. If you do hook a fish and it rasps up the leader, you just have to cut off the damaged bit of line, because if you continue fishing, it's just going to snap instantly. I also take a little travel spool of Sunline FC100, and that just comes in my fishing backpack or my bait junkie pack, because this thing's a bit bulky to carry around. Again, this is 55-pound, which you wouldn't want to go any lighter, but it's adequate for doing this impoundment fishing. I've got a selection of lures here. These have been the lures I've used the most during this trip. It's a combination of soft plastics and hard bodies and spinnerbaits. So most importantly, the Berkeley hollow bellies. So I've got them in 6-inch and 7-inch sizes. You can see they're all rigged differently. This one here is rigged using a TT Stinger rig. So you can see I've used a bit of creativity to rig that internally. Here's the rig without the plastic on it. So that's 3/8 ounce 6.0. That's with the 6-inch hollow belly. That was the lure that got me that first meter fish, and you can see it made a mess of the lure. It straightened out the main hook, and it also straightened out one of the trebles. You can see the leader, you got about probably 10 or 12 centimeters of very frayed leader from, this is how far down it took the lure, and it just basically ruined the lure, ruined the jig head and the line. So I changed the hollow belly afterwards as well. What I found though was this stinger hook kept on hooking little filaments of black weed, and that became super annoying. So I eventually switched over to a standard jig head like this, which is a 3/8 ounce TT in 7.0. I think that's the Swim Locks version, but I didn't put a stinger on, obviously, in this case. So this is the 7-inch hollow belly. I think the 6-inch matched the bait a lot better on this trip, but that's just one that I had rigged up. Another one I used when the weed got very annoying was this same thing, 6-inch hollow belly, but it was using an 8.0 mustard ultra point. So with these power lock ultra point hooks, they kind of screw into the front of the lure and they sit weedless. So you're basically going to be able to burn this lure through the weed and not really catch much of it, which is great for if you're fishing weed beds and shallow water. But I do kind of get concerned about the light gauge of some of these hooks. You got to avoid locking up on them, otherwise you can straighten them out very easily. So this is the quarter ounce in 8.0. So here's the packet for that. Still got a spare one, and you can see there the hook keeper. It's like this ribbed spike, and that goes in the front. Over here you can see the two 3/8 ounce jig heads, the TT and the Barra 3/8 ounce, so they're both good choices. So if you're gonna fish with these hollow bellies, just be mindful that they can tear very easily, and you're probably gonna go through a lot more than you think. So I think I've gone through 6 packets in this trip. simply because when you are fishing in open country and you get occasional backlashes or you get stuck on something, the plastic tears very easily and you have to re-rig. And of course, if you get a fish, you have to also re-rig unless miraculously the plastic doesn't break. So they've been the standout lure this trip. Moving on to the hard bodies. So as I mentioned before, I used quite a few topwater lures this trip. I like the River to Sea. I think this is the 100mm River to Sea popper. I can put some really good trebles on it. It tracks really well, especially if there's a bit of ripple on the surface. I find this topwater presentation is a good one. The Cultiva Tango Dancer, as I mentioned before, performed really well, but you need the super glassy, calm surface for it to track and to dance like it's meant to. The other lures that I've got here, the Bomber 16A, that's a great lure to cover the depth. The dam is pretty shallow, being 17%. Problem with it is these trebles catch that those filaments of black weed. So I didn't use this lure that much. Another lure that I used a little bit was this Lethal Lure subwoofer. You might have noticed I had one rigged up on the Daiwa Team Black outfit. So this one is a slow riser, and it just kind of, it's a glide bait. It moves like this with small twitches just under the surface. So I didn't get any hookups, but I think this lure has a fair bit of potential. So moving on to the spinnerbaits, I didn't actually bring any spinnerbaits with me. I bought these at the front desk kiosk, and these are locally made. They're called Getaminya, and they're made in Biloela. So what I like about these is they've got a nice little Colorado blade, and they've got this stinger hook, a trail hook, which is deadly sharp. It's a fly hook, so anything that looks at that spinnerbait's going to get nailed. And in this little plastic bag, you can cut off your yellow belly leader, and you can store it in there. So when you're ready to fish light tackle, you can cut off your Barra leader and tie that one on. I think I still got a bit to learn about yellow belly fishing, but it was good to give it a go, and I'm glad that I could get these while I was here. I only had some inexpensive mono with me to use as leader, but if I come again, I'll bring some better fluorocarbon. What I've really enjoyed doing over the last 4.5 days is coming out somewhere completely new and learning about a new location. I've liked how I've been able to do everything exactly my way, and really enjoyed getting amongst those big fish. So we're often kind of bombarded with commitments and obligations in the modern society, and being able to disconnect with all of that was great. I think a lot of people make a lot of compromises when they try and do impoundment barra fishing, and they try and do stuff like go skiing and then do some barra fishing, or only do it for 1 hour at lunchtime. And if that's your mentality, you're probably going to struggle a fair bit. So I just encourage people to follow their passion and use their creativity and have that all-in mentality. So that's about it for this video. Thank you for watching if you're still with me. I hope you enjoyed the footage, and I hope you have a great 2024. Bye.